If you want to talk a little bit about politics, I'm happy, but...
No, not at all, because you're here to talk about your stuff. And I think we're live. There we go. Nathan Headley, good morning.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, bro.
Yeah.
What's going on?
Nothing much. Was at Inch Bar last night. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so here in Dunedin, Inch Bar, my local. Good site, good gig.
Yeah, MC, hardly MC, so I was a little bit rusty, but did pretty well. Yeah.
So you are a comedian. That's your title. That's what you're doing. That's what you're getting into. But that's not your full-time gig?
No, I'm a student at the moment.
Yeah.
So,
what are you studying?
Mental health and wellbeing. Basically just studied to be a social worker.
Cool. Because a lot of your comedy and stuff seems to evolve around mental health issues, questions around that. Is that what drove you towards social welfare? Is it all kind of the same ilk?
Yeah, just because like it was my show. I've met lots of people that work in social work field and in like mental hospitals and stuff, and also met people that like have got depression and stuff. And you know, like one of my shows, I saw someone was like a mental health guide dog, and I was like, "Fuck, that's cool."
A mental health, like a what do they call them? Like a companion dog.
Yeah,
mental health guide.
yeah.
So not for someone who's blind, but someone who has anxiety, that sort of thing.
Yeah. And
cool.
I was like,
They
that's
use that
pretty
for
cool.
PTSD and stuff. I think a lot in the States.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
like PTSD dogs and that sort of shit. So I think it's pretty common over in the States.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know they had some in New Zealand there, and I was like, that's pretty cool, and it kind of just drove me to want to study what I study at the moment.
So you're doing social work. Would it be fair to assume in social work you have an interest in the area of mental health? Or, because I mean, social work it's quite a broad sort of a skill set. Do you have somewhere where you want to go?
Mental health or working with teenagers, yeah.
And is that more from your experience meeting and interacting people, or from your own story?
Both. Yeah. I think like meeting people, you kind of like, oh, you know, this seems like a pretty cool job. And then my own story, like I really want to help get people through it. You know, don't want to raise the stigma any more than it's already been raised. Yeah. So
you're a Taranaki boy.
Yeah.
But you're living in Christchurch at the moment.
Yeah.
And you're visiting Dunedin.
Yeah. Get around.
We got all that covered off. And you're down here to do your show, your hour-long show.
Yeah.
Which is now called
Searching for Happiness.
But it used to be called
A Suicide Option.
What was it called? What?
It's Suicide an Option. That used to be the name of the show.
Yeah.
How was that received? Was it people like, hang on, you can't call a comedy show that? Or
I was worried because like I did during Nelson Fringe, and I was like, are people gonna like write this in the paper? Like some guy does comedy about suicide, and his title's just like, so I was like, oh shit, a bit worried. And then I tried to get one of my friends to go, and one of his friends died of suicide like a month ago or something, and he was like, oh, I don't want to go and see a show.
Right.
Was that title? So I was like, oh, I kind of have to change the name to make it seem a bit more light and fluffy.
So there was some negative response to, I don't want to say negative, it's the wrong word. There was a response by some people which made the title less helpful.
Yeah, especially, and like I didn't really get the crowd numbers I wanted, so I think it's got something to do with the title.
And has that changed?
Yeah. I'm starting to get a bit more people to show up to shows, and more people are being more receptive about it, and yeah. So
literally, since you've changed, none of the content's changed?
No, the content's changed.
So do you still talk about suicide in the show?
Yeah. I think that's one of the main talks, like, because I want to talk about like everything with mental health, and suicide's a big part of it.
It's a really interesting. I follow a lot of comedians. I work with a lot of comedians when I was working in radio in Auckland, and I follow a lot of international comedians. And there is a real current topic in the comedy world about what you can and can't talk about, what you can and can't joke about. So it's fascinating because a lot of people would say, obviously you have personal experience with the things you talk about.
Yeah.
We can get into that. But a lot of people would say you can't talk about or joke about suicide, or you can't joke about, I don't know. You can't, like a big one is Caitlyn Jenner. You can't take the piss out of Caitlyn Jenner at the moment for some reason. I don't know why. It seems epically doable to take the piss out of her. But you just approach it head on. Is there anything you won't touch in your comedy?
I won't touch the more darker stuff, like the more personal, where I can't make jokes about it. Like where I would just
Your personal stuff, or just stuff that would be very personal?
just stuff that would be very personal. Like I don't joke about my brother dying, and I don't joke about some of the nightmares I had waking up and when I had depression. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
So tell us your story. How did this whole journey start for you? And what's the history behind, obviously, this show where we're searching for happiness now? So obviously seems like a fairly long, maybe slightly tortured story. So how did we get here?
So like back when I was a teenager, my brother kind of passed away, and I kind of didn't really deal with it in a proper manner, if you know what I mean. Kind of speaks.
Is it okay to ask how he passed away?
Asthma attack.
Oh no.
Yeah.
So was already a bad asthmatic?
Yeah, real bad, and it was a pretty shit time.
I say, oh no, not that any good way. There's a good way for a kid to die, but something that seems so treatable seems even worse.
Yeah. Oh no, I like how you like quickly saved that. By the way,
Oh, good.
my parents might be listening into this. Yeah.
Oh,
They're
but
gonna flame me on the
there's lots of. I mean, a kid, whatever age, dying is always horrible, but I mean that's like saying, an asthma attack. Two of my kids have asthma.
Yeah, shit.
So, yeah, hits a bit conscious at home. So I passed away from an asthma attack. That's terribly sad. Sorry for that.
Thank you. Yeah, so I didn't really like take the time to kind of deal with it, and plus I had lots of other things happening in my life. And
How old were you at this time?
I was 13.
Okay, how old was he?
9.
Okay.
Yeah. And fast forward, like there's a competition in New Zealand comedy thing for newcomers called Raw Comedy Competition, and I've kind of done this, and it was my third time kind of doing the competition at that time. And
So you were 13 and doing comedy?
it was like ages after that happened, because I haven't, like, from 13 up to 22 I didn't really deal with my brother's death as well as I could have.
Okay.
I saw counsellors when I was 13, but I didn't really like kind of deal with it. Like I just kind of.
So are you able to expand on that at all, or is that still something you're working through? Like when you say you didn't handle it very well, what did your life look like?
I was just like trying to be a teenager and be like, oh, it happened.
Oh, okay. So you're like trying to blow it off. These things happen.
Yeah, like trying to think about it, I guess, and like because you're a male and you're like, oh, I don't really want to cry or don't really want to talk about it,
Yep.
Like, because New Zealand's got that big stigma when you're a man, like you have to be strong, tough,
Yep.
and
Rugby, racing, beer.
yeah.
Cheers.
So like, I kind of was like, I was in that mindset at the time, and I was like, don't really feel like talking about it, and I'll see counsellors and stuff, but I wouldn't really want to be like, don't really want to talk about this. Let's talk about something else. And I spend all the time drawing pictures or something in the counsellor's office. So,
So are you saying that kind of, it was less than a decade, but that decade-ish of your life, you just sort of pushed it down and didn't deal with it?
Yeah, and plus I also discovered comedy around that time, and that kind of also helped me.
Who'd you discover?
So my friend was really big into Fly the Conchords.
Yeah, cool.
And Fred Dagg.
Yeah, cool.
And those are the first shows I watched. Yeah.
The front fell off. I don't know. I don't know what else I can say.
I know that was one of the saddest things ever when he passed away in the last couple of years.
Yeah, I heard about that, and I like cried at the bus stop.
I was lucky enough to work with him once.
Shit.
And ironically, it was never in person, but we did a radio show. We did a radio theatre.
Yeah.
And he was a character on it, and I was another character. So I never got to meet him in face to face, but we did, an hour's worth of work over the phone together, which was kind of cool. Down the phone and recording it.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So Fred Dagg, that's interesting because he's 70s, early 80s, so that's interesting to discover him.
Yeah, it was because like my parents dairy farmers, and I think Fred Dagg kind of resonated with me a little bit because of his whole gumboot thing and the whole country calendar thing he did.
Yep, and that fantastic speech he did for the best man speech. Yeah, that one.
No, I didn't.
There's a best man speech. It's fantastic. And I had a friend who, when he was the best man, he always promised his best mate that he'd do that speech for him. So he didn't actually do anything about the guy or his bride. He did the Fred Dagg best man speech at his wedding. It was fantastic.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Flight of the Conchords.
Yeah.
So this is while they were doing their TV show, or was it more their stage work?
I was after the TV show because
Okay.
my friend had the DVDs and we were watching that, and yeah, which is pretty cool. And then after Flight of the Conchords, I kind of got into Reese Darby, and then
Natural progression.
yeah, and RJ Barker as well. He's
Yeah,
pretty
Barker.
cool.
Yeah, cool.
And then from that, Laughing Samoans.
Oh, now are they the two guys?
Yeah.
And the big dude often plays like a little girl character.
Yeah, that's fucking great.
Yeah, they're funny, eh?
And then Gabriel Iglesias, have you heard of?
He's just had a show come out on Netflix just in the last couple of days called Mr. Iglesias or something.
Yeah, I watched it like 2 days.
Oh, have you? I don't think I've ever seen his stand-up, but I know who you mean.
That's
He's real
the
funny.
fluffy guy, isn't
Yeah,
he? He's always
yeah.
calling him. He just says, "I'm not fat, I'm fluffy" or something, isn't it?
Oh,
That's what he
okay.
says. Yeah.
Has the best like impressions and everything. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. So you discovered comedy,
Yeah.
and there was some people obviously, like when I discovered comedy, it was Eddie Murphy and Delirious and Raw in the 80s. And I watched Delirious, gosh, probably
I've seen
50
that.
times.
I've seen that once. I brought the DVD.
Yeah.
And, like, he just spoke way too fast for me.
And then I was lucky enough to work with some, like in the late 90s and stuff. I worked with Jeremy Corbett and Paul Ego and a bunch of these people in and around. And then I did a podcast with Jeremy Elwood. So all these people were close. I mean, work colleagues. I'm not saying like we were best buds or anything, but yeah, it's a really interesting group of people, really interesting dynamic. And I think that's probably one of the reasons I'm really, like I watch and listen to a lot of comedy. And I like discovering comedy. The best comedy album I've ever heard, you could maybe find this, Jace. There's and I don't follow her, or I haven't ever listened to any of her other stuff, is an artist called Tig Notaro. Do you know Tig?
No.
She does this stand-up routine, and I found it on Spotify purely out of, by accident. I was one of those moments where I was kind of just going through Spotify and going, stand-up comedy, and then just listening. She does stand-up routine. Maybe you could Google something, Jace, like Tig Notaro, and I think it's Notoro.
Yeah, I've got it.
I'm dying of cancer, or I've got cancer. And she starts the show just by going, hey, good to see you. Hey, good to see you. I've got cancer. Hey, good to see you. I've got cancer. And the story is something like within the last couple of days, she'd been diagnosed with cancer.
Someone who is extremely nice
And
extremely cherish, and you do too.
And you just listen to the very first couple of seconds. Hopefully it won't get pulled for us.
We love you, Tig.
Hello. Good evening. Hello. I have cancer.
That's
How
how she
are you?
starts. And she was
Hi, how are you?
diagnosed
Is everybody
Yeah.
having a good
like within the few days before that gig. And that gig is like, for want of a better word, sort of her coming out and her way of dealing with cancer. And it's the most amazing set. I mean, I don't know where she would rank on, quality of stand-up comedians and stuff, but she's known,
Yeah.
But that set, and it's interesting, I'm talking to you today about mental health and stuff, that was obviously a way for her to get it out there. She'd obviously had this news that she couldn't do anything else with. So the set is about her diagnosis. So obviously it's no preparation. She hasn't gone and written a whole lot of jokes. She just talks for an hour. And it just wraps up so beautifully that she tells this stupid little joke at the end of it, and everyone just goes ballistic. And it sounds like there's comedians in the audience as well. At one stage, towards the end, someone yells out, I think it's tell the B joke, and it sounds like Louis C.K.'s voice. And so there might be a bunch of comedians who knew what she was going to do. I don't know. But yeah, if you like comedy, you should look up her and look up Hello, I Have Cancer and just listen to that. If you like even, I don't know what you'd call it, but people dealing with their own issues, people finding a place for outlet. If you don't like comedy, but you like hearing how people go through something personally, it is the most amazing set.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, and that's why there's no imagery for it. It's not like they filmed it, or most comedy clubs these days just record what's there.
Yeah, basically.
And that's what it was. And I think after that, Louis C.K., who apparently is a bad name to say these days, then maybe helped her turn it into something afterwards. Because it was
basically
amazing.
saying here in this article that he was at the
Oh, he was there,
at
was
the
he?
set, and he was the one who convinced her to release the recording afterwards. Yeah, basically because she'd been diagnosed. Was it diagnosed 4 days beforehand?
Yeah, there you go.
And
I like
then
her
announced
photo,
it.
by the way. The like album cover she had.
Yeah, it's funny, eh? I'm obviously not to get personal, but you imagine someone going through imagine a brother passing away,
Yeah.
and 4 days later then working it out on stage. Do you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like you kind of think about it and go, oh my goodness. Imagine a marriage breaking down and 4 days later working it on stage. Imagine, whatever it is, that's what that
But
is.
the funny thing that's like happened was my depression, like, like how I dealt with it, because like, I was in a very bad place after doing the Raw competition because I didn't make it through, and I was like, oh, comedy sucks, and I did this whole origami bit, and I was like, oh yeah, fake origami, and then I kind of did that, and like I did a show during this thing called Christchurch Comedy Carnival, and I just hated myself and hated comedy, and thought I was doing something that I like enjoyed, but at the same time, I didn't feel welcomed, and I didn't feel
part of the community.
Yeah, and it just didn't feel like I belonged there anymore, because I done this Raw and
So this is just to check. This is like 20ish. Are we talking?
22.
Okay, so this is less than
21.
Okay, so 7 or 8 years after your brother's passed, this is where you're starting to find comedy and come out of it, and find a way to work through what happened.
Yeah, and because I just started sleeping a lot, and I told people, and they're like, "Oh, I think I got depression," and I kind of got back from Auckland. I saw a counsellor before I went to Auckland. Went to Auckland for like a family holiday.
Yeah.
Did a gig there, got lots of laughs to my origami bit, came back and kind of just had a mental breakdown, and went and saw a doctor and was like, hey, look, I'm dealing with this, and he's like, sounds like you got depression, and I was like, shit, okay. And then I kind of like took a break from comedy for a week, try and process it, and then kind of a week later, kind of like went to watch comedy, and one of the producers at the time were like, oh, did you want a spot? And I was like, yeah, sure. And so I got a spot, and I told a joke, which I tell at the start of my show, about how I went to the doctors and they diagnosed me with depression, and they got a massive pop. And then a comedian who's like really respected in Christchurch called Justin Rusty White kind of said something on Facebook about me the next day, and I was like, it's just so I just felt so welcomed. And
So when you said it, like the bit about depression and getting diagnosed, was that you doing a bit, or were you just riffing off something that had just happened?
I just thought about it that week, and I was like, that's actually a little bit funny, and
Yeah.
I just got a lot of laughs, and everyone was like, that's pretty cool, and like I just felt like I found my niche then, and during that time I also discovered a comedian called Chris Gifford, and he's got a whole show called Career Suicide. And like I was just searching up comedians with depression, and he kind of popped up, and like his show's just all about depression and his suicidal thoughts and everything, and it kind of inspired me to like do that bit as well. Yeah.
So you've been diagnosed as depressed, having depression.
Yeah, severe depression. Yeah.
Severe depression.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? How does one function on a daily basis, or the case may be not function, when one's severely depressed?
You just sleep lots, play PlayStation games. Yeah, like I tried to eat healthy and stuff around that time because the doctor was like, "Oh, you tried eating healthy," and then it kind of just didn't really work out. And you just feel a bit like, just like you don't want to do anything. I still went to work and stuff, and didn't really enjoy it, and just felt a bit lost, and yeah.
And so you're medicated then at the time?
Yeah, I was medicated. And the meds kind of made me feel worse, and I talk about this in my show as well. And I like end up going to Hillmorton to get meds changed and getting sleeping pills to help me sleep. And I kind of like went from feeling real bad to starting my life kind of switched around. And
Well, meaning the meds really helped? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. And now they're raw again, and I didn't really make it through. And then I was like, oh, it's all right. And that was my last chance to do Raw, and I was 22, 23.
Mm-hmm.
And then I did Nelson Fringe, and was the suicide option, and got nominated for Best Newcomer Comedian. Best
Wow.
Newcomer, yeah. And that's when I knew, like, this is pretty cool. And, it had really good reviews as well, and I was like, this is, like, I just felt on top of the world, and just wanted to carry on making a show.
So your comedy, is it self-referential? Does it talk you don't go out and go, oh, so who sees Donald Trump? You know, it's more like your life, your story, your perspective.
Yeah, I take people on the journey.
Yeah. So where's the line between kind of comedian and storyteller? Is there one?
No, not really. Like, I think if you're a storyteller, you can be a comedian as well. Like,
so guys like Jimmy Carr and that who do the kind of set up punchline, and then there's guys like Jim Jeffries does a 25-minute story. You know, and it may not be his life, but it's a formed story. Yeah. You're certainly the long form.
Yeah.
You'd be a terrible guest on a television show where they say you've got 3.5 minutes.
No, like, I've got that, but I got I'll tell a 2-minute joke.
Okay,
yeah.
Fine. So that could work for you as well. Oh, that's really interesting. So how old are you now?
I'm 23.
Oh, so we're talking in the last 18 months, 2 years.
Yeah, yeah.
So how's life at the moment?
Pretty good in the moment.
Yeah?
Yeah, I've done well. Yeah, I got depressed to get into Auckland. That's pretty fun. Want to leave. I did Auckland Fringe and I had like the 5 o'clock time slot. And
yeah.
I thought it would be a good time slot and people were like, oh, that's pretty shit. And I was like, oh, I'll try and prove you wrong. And then had like fucking 4 people the first day. And
oh no.
They weren't paying customers as well.
Oh no.
And the next day I had 2 people. And then last day I had 7. So I was like, oh, that's a bit better. You kind of like at that stage just like, I want to quit. Like, you just want to go home, not think about it anymore.
So is that something that resides in you? That's being. I mean, if you get given a shit time slot and get shit audiences because of a shit time slot, but that's still something that weighs on you. Like you blame yourself for it.
Yeah. Like I blamed myself for a bit and just felt a little bit shit on and just didn't real feel like, oh yeah, my show sucks. And then I did Needham Fringe and I was worried about that, and I was like, oh, I got the Needham Fringe coming up, I'm doing a Koha show, and yeah, I'm like, I'm probably gonna get shit audiences. I had a bit of time slot, and I'd still like I had like the 5 o'clock time slots, and they did alright. No, 6 o'clock, sorry. And the first day I got like 10 people in, and yeah.
I wonder if just par for the course in Auckland, if you've got a 5 o'clock time slot, people are only just walking out of their offices. Whereas if you've got like a 5 o'clock time slot in Dunedin, people are already basically home from their offices.
Yeah.
So probably a 6 o'clock time slot in Auckland is equivalent of a 5 o'clock time slot in Dunedin or something.
Basically.
I don't know, to try and get there.
And plus the traffic as well, like like traffic time and Dunedin's like, you don't see much traffic in Dunedin, so
yeah. If you wanted to get to the show at 5 o'clock, you'd leave your house at like 5 to 5. Yeah.
Slight exaggeration. But
if you wanted to get there, if you wanted to get to a 7 o'clock show in Auckland, you'd leave at 5 to 5.
yeah.
So it's interesting that you're still. So would you still be diagnosed as being in a state of depression now, or how does it work? How does it work where you're at? And I want to talk to you about this personally as well, because I've been through some mental health issues in the last couple of years, due to a marriage breakup and that kind of stuff. Yeah. Nothing like, what would be described as serious, but some stuff. So for you personally, how do you diagnose yourself? Like, alcoholic says, I'm an alcoholic even 20 years later. How are you? If someone was to ask you about your mental health, what would you be saying for today?
I think I still got severe depression and like mild anxiety and everything. But I think it's how you deal with it and how you kind of like cope with it. Like I know if my depression is picking up, I know how to deal with it, and always make an effort every day to either leave the house or go out and try and have fun. Because I find like if you're stuck at home, you feel that way. Yeah. Like you kind of get into that slum where you're like, oh, I feel depressed and never done anything. So,
and you're still medicated, still taking meds?
Yeah.
And that works for you? That kind of takes that edge off to help you get outside?
Yeah. Especially like sometimes like I go on and off the meds, but sometimes I feel like I can, like if I feel a bit bad or something's coming up or I feel depressed about or feel anxious, I can always take them.
And what about the is suicide an option? Part of the storyline that you told. How did that pan out for you?
It was kind of like it was real funny because I was talking to a friend about this last month when I did my show in the flat to like try and rewrite it and everything.
Right.
And it was after the show, and my friend turned around and he was like, "Oh, like, do you ever like get those thoughts when you're like, oh, yeah, feeling suicidal, and suddenly you see something, you're like, no longer feeling suicidal anymore." You know, like you see like this thing for like Big Mac with bacon, like holy shit! Like,
who could feel suicidal when there's a Big Mac with bacon?
Double down's the back, like.
I'm not going anywhere until I had double down.
Yeah. But that can snap you out of it that quickly.
Yeah.
Wow.
You know, when I was feeling suicidal at the time, though, like when I was feeling real bad, like I kind of didn't really snap it out. But then you can start thinking about like family and everything, and you know, at the time you feel sad, but then you're like, I got family and I got friends that. You know.
So, is there a difference, in your opinion? This is not necessarily about you, but just about the depression, you know, suicidal part of life. Is there a difference between feeling sad, as you've just said, I can feel sad, or being depressed? I mean, everyone feels sad. What's the step to go towards depression and suicidal ideation sort of thing?
I think there's something inside you, like, because, like, I think, I don't know how to say this, but, like I think people feel sad for, like, you know, a period, and then depression, you feel sad, mopey, droopy, you know, just don't feel like doing anything, and, you know.
Do you think that sadness is something that maybe we have, you know, like you say, a double down might take you out of your sadness.
Yeah.
But depression is more of a, you know, something that needs to be chemically righted almost.
Yeah, I think it's very...
Maybe a double down can chemically right that as well, mate. Double down on a Pepsi.
Yeah. Double down. Yeah, I think that can also help as well. Yeah, like, I think, like, you know, depression and stuff, like, sadness is very different.
Yeah.
And I think depression is more chemically imbalanced. Definitely, like, and then plus they've done like work into it, everything, like research and shit apparently, and I felt different being depressed than I did feeling sad.
Yeah.
But I think sad and grief, like, and all that stuff, like, definitely leads into depression. You know, especially if you don't deal with it, like. You know, like how long, you know, because, you know, especially with males and stuff, like, if you don't deal with it, you don't talk to someone at that time, then you kind of, like, you still have that feeling of sadness and guilt and grief linger over you a little bit, I think, if you know what I mean. And I think that's what depression is kind of like.
In saying that as well, we might have just given KFC a new advertising campaign.
Yeah. How to cure depression. Yeah. Double down your depression away. That'd be perfect. Absolutely perfect. So if you personally, and look, I mean, I know that I'm treading on potentially for some people thin ice here, so obviously anything that you don't want to answer, don't answer or whatever. But the suicidal thoughts, was there ever ideations? Was it ever enacted for you? Or was it just these kind of weird thoughts in the back of your brain? Like, I did attempt it twice.
Wow.
But I was talking about my show. Like, I self-harmed, and then I tried, like stay on the road. But, like, and then you kind of, like, switch into that mindful where, like, oh, you've got family, friends, and a whole bunch of other stuff, and yeah.
And family and friends are one of the things that pull you out?
Yeah, like, I think, like,
are they in Christchurch as well? Are they up in Taranaki?
No, so, like, some of my family and friends everywhere. Like, I got, like, comedy friends and stuff that are in Christchurch and Dunedin, everywhere. And then I got, like, all my family's in Taranaki. I got some family in Christchurch and Dunedin as well.
Nice.
Yeah, I think, like,
while you're in Dunedin, I noticed on Facebook that you're friends with Tom. Has he got you? Is he making you get eat some plants on his Comedians Eating Plants show?
He actually took photos of me when I first did my show here. That's pretty cool. I want to do that. I've been eating the plant before.
There you go, Tom. If you're listening or watching, you should get him in to eat some plants. Yeah. It's a friend of a mutual friend of ours who's got a video show that he's doing on Facebook called Comedians Eating Plants, because he's a vegan, and so he gets his non-vegan mates to come in, and he feeds them a meal of vegan food at some vegan restaurant in Dunedin, and
cool.
And basically they just chat. So it's kind of like, It's kind of like comedians in cars getting coffee, but as a vegan, and it's not Jerry Seinfeld.
Comedians in restaurants eating vegan.
Yeah.
And he pays for the food.
And he pays for the food, yeah.
More power to them.
They did Hell's Pizza once. I remember that. That's pretty.
Can you do vegan Hell's Pizza?
Yeah, they do.
We just had this conversation a couple of weeks ago about what vegans should and shouldn't be allowed to do. And I got some hate for it on our Facebook page. But I stand by the effect that if you're a vegan and you're rejecting meat, for whatever reason, I'm fine with that. But then to say, now can you make me a plant supplement that looks like meat, smells like meat, and tastes like meat, and so I can put it between two burger buns? I just think that should be illegal. If you're rejected meat, then you shouldn't be. Although in saying that, I'm also don't have any problem at all with meat replacement, like plant-based meat replacements. But for someone to reject meat and then say, now give me something that tastes exactly like me, it's like, no, you don't get to have that. You're not allowed it. Sorry.
This is what we were talking about just before we came.
Oh yeah, check this out.
Hell
That
Pizza.
Hell Pizza released a, what was it? They released a burger pizza. Yeah, what is it? Let me just bring it up for our viewers. Burger pizza, and they were out. It was out for a week, and then they released this week that it was actually entirely plant based. So they worded it carefully: medium rare burger patty. They didn't say meat, but yeah, apparently people are like "Roar," or something.
I think that's interesting because imagine if someone did the reverse. Imagine if someone gave you some cucumber, and then after it they went, "Ha ha! It was really made of meat."
Yeah.
There'd be an uproar.
Oh yeah, but I don't think it's like.
It was actually a pork sausage. We painted the grade.
To be fair, if you can't tell the difference between pork sausage and a cucumber, maybe you shouldn't
Well,
be a vegan.
but look, show us that photo again. Can you tell the difference between a meat product and that burger patty? Yeah, see,
I don't know.
someone out there,
Looks like beans, to be honest.
beans. Oh, I say again. I mean, not that this is a part necessarily of the conversation. I think that vegetable replacement meat products is a great idea. It'd be good for the environment and everything. But people who reject meat shouldn't get to eat stuff that tastes like meat. Fuck off.
We were from depression talking about plants. I love it.
Just derailed the conversation with mutual friends. There you go.
No, that's cool. I mean, there's lots of things to derail the conversation about. So, for example, did you see last night that the New Zealand men's netball team
Yeah.
beat the New Zealand women's netball team?
Shit. No, it didn't. That's pretty cool.
It is pretty cool.
Shit.
Because the New Zealand men's netball team, do you know netball at all? Very well?
Yeah, I know a little bit about it.
So you know the goal shoot, goal attack of people who shoot for goal.
Yeah.
The New Zealand men's netball team has a goal shoot who's 7'2". And
That's a bit unfair, a little bit.
Well, but this is the thing. It's really interesting, eh? I was talking to my daughters about it because we were watching. One of my daughters plays netball, and we were watching it last night. And it's like you can't. She was like, you just can't compete with boys. And maybe it's my naivety. There he is, Junior. Oh no, that's not him. That's the captain. That's the guy there with the moustache. Junior Levy. Yeah, 7'2". And you know that the girls in the netball team are large girls, as in tall.
Yeah.
And I was looking at them thinking, oh, all those girls are about 6 foot, so that means he's about 6'6", which is pretty big for a bloke. But then I went and looked it up, and he's 7'2", and it actually means because all the girls are like 6'3", who play around, goal shoot, goal defense. So they're massive, and honestly, they look like children playing next to an adult. He's like a gorilla.
He should be playing basketball.
Well, they probably do. But it was interesting. Then I had this conversation with my daughters, and we ended up chatting about dominance of men. There's a lot in society today who says, men and women are the same, biologically we're the same, and actually, I thought that the women, and maybe this is my naivety, that the women netball team would have beaten the men's netball team because they're professionals, they play it all the time, they're world champions, but actually the physical dominance of a male figure is still enough to overpower, the best women athletes in the world.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I mean, I say my naivety, fine. But it's crazy.
In saying that, I'm certainly not going to be able to take on a female athlete sprinter.
Yeah, but probably the fastest New Zealand's female sprinter in New Zealand could get beaten by the 50th fastest male sprinter. They say that's Serena Williams. Maybe you could look this up. Serena Williams, greatest netball player of all times ever in the history of the game. If you lined up all the professional tennis players there's ever been, I think, and this is what we want to check because I don't want to be to do a disservice, I think that they said she'd come in about number 1,500.
Shit.
Greatest female tennis player there has ever been. And I think they say that basically if you're in the men's game in the top 500, you can beat, they'd beat the greatest female player ever.
No, sorry, this is the wrong article I was just bringing up. Sorry, I'll keep looking.
So it was really interesting because you have to think, and this is no disrespect to those men playing netball because they're athletes, there's no question, but you think the best ball handlers, is that the right word? The thing about male athletes in New Zealand, the ones who are the most skilled with small ball games, rugby, basketball, volleyball even, games that could go to the Olympics or be professional, they're all going to take off the best of those people, which means these guys in the netball team aren't going to be the pinnacle athletes in men's sport.
No.
And so that means even some, and I'm being really careful here because look at me, I'm the last person to criticise someone of their athletic prowess, but just literally, they're not going to be, they're not going to be the best shooter in the country. That person's going to be playing basketball. That's Stephen Adams or someone playing basketball for the NBA. And they still beat them. I'm just so surprised. And because I really like those kinds of conversations, I'm fascinated where that conversation could go, because there is a narrative at the moment that men and women are the same, even biologically we're the same. That's a narrative at the moment that a male to female transgender athlete can compete against biological women and there's no difference. And I said to my daughter yesterday, my daughter said it to me actually. She said, "Oh, that's that transgender thing." And I said, "Yeah, because that dude who's 7'2", if he transitioned to a female, would still be 7'2".
Yeah, fuck yeah.
He's not going to take on a petite female form.
No, he's not.
So yeah. Anyway, that's a bit of a byproduct. A sideways look.
I agree though. Like I think our physical makeup's different. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a very interesting narrative at the moment out there that people say we're the same, because we're clearly not. I mean, we looked it up last night, me and my daughter's like the tallest woman in the world. Tallest woman in the world at the moment, according to the records, is 7'8". So it is a big girl. But, I can probably name 10 to 15 men who are well over 7 foot because I follow basketball. I don't even know the name of the 7'8" woman. Pardon me? No. If you did hear anything in the background, there is some construction going on up here as well. So that's it.
Bastards.
What about yourself when it comes when it comes to sports and stuff? Do you follow anything? You're a rugby guy?
Yeah, rugby.
So being from Taranaki, living in Christchurch, have you turned to the dark side and followed the Crusaders?
No. Hurricanes fan.
Okay, so this weekend?
Yeah, go Hurricanes, man.
Yeah.
Bowden Barrett all the way.
Yeah.
Barrett.
So your heart saying go Hurricanes, what's your head telling you?
I think Hurricanes might win it.
You reckon?
Yeah, they're a pretty good squad at the moment.
They are. But, I thought that the Highlanders, had a chance last weekend against the Crusaders. I know most people will scoff at that and go, well, of course they were the greatest. And yeah, but I actually think they did themselves a disservice. I think Liam Squire getting sent off really didn't help. But I really believed that there was a good chance for the Highlanders to knock them off last week. Didn't happen. Hurricanes will be that's obviously an upset. I'm still pissed off at the Super Rugby the way they do it though. Letting in all those competition, people who haven't performed as well, letting them in.
Because Hurricanes should be second on the table.
Yeah,
really, but
which means they should be facing the Crusaders in the final, following form.
Yeah,
but one of them will get knocked out, either the top team or the second team, a week early.
Exactly, which is kind of sad. And then the Jaguars are going to go and play whatever other Australian team.
I love that you call them the Jaguars.
Yeah.
Because I don't get this the Jaguares, because they're the Jaguars. We're an primarily English. Well, we're an English-speaking country. We're a bilingual country, obviously. Yeah. We're actually a trilingual if you include New Zealand Sign Language, 3 official languages. But when you're listening or watching rugby, place names are said in English. You say France, playing France. I'm not even sure how you pronounce. What was the French word for France? Is there a French word for France?
Francais? No,
Francais?
that's when you're speaking about the language.
Maybe it's just France, but you know what I mean. We don't use their native language to describe the teams or places.
Exactly.
We say we're playing in Paris. We don't say we're playing in Paris. You know? So they're the Jaguars. It frustrates me when I hear announcers saying that. Aguirre. It's like, no, the Jaguars. That's the Jaguars.
Yeah.
What was some of the other teams pronounced that way?
Say again?
How would you pronounce the other teams if you pronounce them like that? I don't know.
Well, also, they'd probably, oh, mind you, I was going to say the Springboks probably call themselves a Springbok, but there's probably a South African word for a Springbok.
Probably.
So, but they call themselves a Springbok, so.
Yeah. What I was going to say, well, who do you think's better, Bowden Barrett or Richie Mo'unga?
Oh, Barrett.
Barrett?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, no question. But the thing with Bowden Barrett, after he made the All Blacks, I mean, it was great. I remember when, what's the boy from Waikato called? Who was in before him?
Stephen Donald?
No.
Oh, Aaron Cruden?
Yeah, Cruden was in. And they kept on bringing on Bowden Barrett for the last 20, and Bowden Barrett seemed to win the games with him. You know, I was saying, well, you know, at some stage, this person who was obviously the best player on the field should probably be starting, and then he started and then hasn't looked back since. Since he got that starting position, his form in Super Rugby hasn't been anywhere near as good as his form in All Black Rugby.
No. But that's because, like, I think it's also the forward pack and the squad. Like, the Hurricanes don't have really the greatest forward pack, and the Crusaders have, like, all the All Blacks in their forward pack.
What do you think about there is a little bit of, what do you call it, rumour, niggle around that Auckland's going to try and get Bowden Barrett first five?
I don't think it'll happen.
You don't?
No.
Why not? Someone gave you a big fat check and said, come on up. I used to say this when I worked in radio. There was, it was what happened with the America's Cup when the guys went left Team New Zealand and went across for Oracle. Yeah. I'm like, dude, they went from earning, good money, $200,000 to like 10 million. And I was like, I would, this radio station, which I love, if the opposition offered me 10 times the wage, I would be gone in a heartbeat. No matter how much I love the station and how much I'm grateful to the breaks and all that kind of stuff, if the opposition offered me 10 times the money, you wouldn't see me for moving so fast across.
If somebody came in and said, hey, I want to do a live stream video podcast, Jason, come leave Pat and come work for me and I'll offer you 10 times as much, I'd be gone in a heartbeat too.
Well, 10 times zero is not very much though.
Yeah, that's the joke.
Still coming. Looking for those. If you're a sponsor out there, we're still looking. The other thing I want to talk to you about is comedy in this day and age. Now, you're fair to say that you're fairly new to the comedy scene.
Yeah, I've been doing it for like 4 years. So
yeah. So what do you want to do? Do you want this to be, in an ideal world, your full-time gig?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I was interested. There's a couple of Instagram accounts we brought up. One, an Australian comedian called Celeste Barber. She is hilarious. And her thing at the moment is going and doing like posing, copying posing and doing all that sort of thing. I particularly like the one in the middle with the t-shirts. That's particularly offensive. Actually, I think she is a stand-up comedian, but she's certainly got a comedy angle to her, whether she's an actress or not. But what people are doing with their comedy in this day and age to kind of show their wares, and
literally,
yeah, their underwears. And now with technology in this day and age, we're able to. Why don't you try and find a video of hers as well, just to show the peeps what she's doing. If people are listening, Celeste Barber, you can find her on Instagram. You show this one. So she goes through, she copies, what Instagram models and actresses and stuff are doing for a bit.
Holy shit.
But if you look at her Instagram feed, all that's on the Instagram feed is comedy. So this is basically her television station. This is her outlet, The same as Kyle Dunnigan, who's an American. Do you know Kyle Dunnigan?
No.
He uses Face Swap. It's fucking hilarious, man. He does a really good Trump, and he does a really good Caitlyn. What's her surname?
Jenner?
I was going to say Bennett. Who's Caitlyn Bennett?
We're talking about Bowden Barrett, and then you come to. That's pretty good.
He does a face swap thing.
Hey, Lon, I wanted you to meet Kylie because you both have a lot in common. You're both billionaires. Yeah.
Oh, epic.
So he does them all.
How'd you become a billionaire?
Don't blow this, Kylie. I'm trying to fuck this guy.
But the same with his whole Instagram feed You don't find any photos of the meal he had last night or of what he's doing on a Sunday afternoon with his kids or anything. It's just comedy. And it's not all face swap. Like he does some other things. Oh, there's Arnold, and he does a very good, he show a bit of Trump to show his voice for Trump.
I think it's fantastic that you saved the Special Olympics.
Yeah, all right, terrific.
Yeah. And now all these kids can be running and jumping and all of these things.
Yeah, and Trump didn't say the R word one time. Such a terrible word. Trump would never say someone is retarded again. Retarded. Okay.
Then now what
But
did you say?
I mean, you're newish into the game. I mean, you're also coming in at a really exciting time where comedians are basically going, "I'll do it my way." Yeah. Technology in this day and age allows me to. You look at the way it was happening, even in New Zealand, like things like 7 Days, amazing program.
Oh, heck yeah.
But it's probably a $10 million budget. He makes those. Kyle Dunnigan, and I'm sure Celeste is the same, makes those in his house, films them himself, scripts them himself, and they get 300,000 views. It's just a really interesting time to be in a creative medium.
Yeah, it is. I think it's pretty good. Like these YouTube now, like I think back in like Ben Hurley's days and all the other people's days, like those things went around. So like they kind of had to like word of mouth, I guess.
Or TV.
Yeah.
People relied on sort of old media, mainstream media.
Radio.
So that guy there, Kyle Dunnigan, he had 40,000 followers on Instagram, which seems like a lot to us in New Zealand, right? That'll be a big audience in New Zealand.
But in America, that's like tiny.
Yeah, that's like tiny. But what happened was he got discovered by a couple of other comedians. I think maybe Tom Segura or Bert Kreischer, one of those guys. So when I say discovered, that's patronising. They liked him and they started sending his stuff out. And then he got on the Joe Rogan podcast. And now he's got 550,000 followers. So, it's like he got to do it himself and he does comedy his way and he's got no one to answer to. And it just seems like a lovely if you can monetize it, not to be too, blimmin' capitalistic, but if you can monetize it, you've got to pay the bills. It seems to be a really interesting time to live.
Yeah. He's probably got sponsors now as well.
I guess so, yeah. But also what that then does is gives him an audience.
Yeah.
And then he sells out the clubs because he's got an audience coming. Who did I hear the other day? I was listening to a podcast. It might have been, I think it's called Your Mom's House. And they were talking about they don't go and do breakfast radio anymore. Like how comedians hate doing breakfast radio. Because you've got to get up early, you go in, and the radio person brings you in and gives you 4 minutes, and then because what they do now is they just go to their Instagram and they go, hey, location X, I'm in town, and the location sells out.
Basically, that's what happens, nowadays.
So you're delving into stand-up. Are you looking at doing anything else? You got any other kind of creative things going on at the moment?
Yeah, I'm start doing that on Instagram. Because I want to do Instagram a bit more. I think that's a pretty popular media at the time. I thought about doing stuff on YouTube, but to me, YouTube is like one of those dying medias. Like it's still popular, but at the same time,
it's really hard to get cut through. To get noticed on Instagram is a lot easier because they don't seem to game their algorithms as much. If people like it, it shows up in other people's things.
One of the things that's happening in YouTube at the moment, and we are on YouTube, but we don't publicise that very much. We kind of use it as a storage space.
Yeah.
So if you go to YouTube now, you can find us. But some of our videos there have got single-figure views because most of the people...
45 followers on YouTube, I think.
Most of our people, 99% of the people who watch what we do watch us on Facebook. And that's where we kind of focus it. One of the things that's happening on YouTube, and it's publicised, is that since Russiagate happened, the algorithms are changing in YouTube to favour... I guess, would we be considered a source of news? We probably would, wouldn't we? We'd probably come under that.
Maybe?
We'd probably come under that.
Either news or entertainment.
Opinion piece kind of thing. Infotainment.
Yeah.
And they've made it very clear since the last US election that they're going to, if you are an accredited news source, if you're a quote-unquote trusted news source, you go to the top of the algorithm. So actually what's happening is all the independents out there are starting to see drop-off of viewership. The big guys and all the places like the CNNs and the Fox and the MSNBCs and the Breitbarts and all that kind of stuff, they're starting to see a pickup because they're deemed trusted. So it's interesting that
hit that button.
This actual social media this digital age we live in is starting to turn and go back to trusting old media. There's a strange thing going on at the moment.
Yeah. There's also like, I think also with YouTube, there's also like a lot of YouTubers are moving to like live streaming like on Twitch and stuff. And, yeah. So.
Well, Facebook also is the same. There's some interesting things at Facebook. We've had a few things taken down off Facebook that we've put up there, saying things like, Jace, help me with this. They've been saying things like, we think that yours is either political or social commentary or something else like that.
Yeah, well, we had one of the clips with Christian Piccolini, Piccolini.
Well, we had one of the ones from the vegan guys not be able to be boosted.
Yeah, like
from we're talking vegan stuff, and they wouldn't put it up because of the social commentary.
Yeah, well, the one video I think that was the worst one was the fact that we were talking about why, like basically trying to debunk some of the myths about what white supremacists believe. Yeah, and they wouldn't let it up. They're like saying this is promoting extremist views, and it's like no, this is debunking
extremist views. So the algorithms are not helping, and now on Facebook you have to go in and be like an authorized, trusted source. And so we're like, okay, well, we next year is the elections. Yeah. Both of them, there's New Zealand and US. We need to be a trusted source so we can put our clips up. So you're going to put it up and you click on New Zealand and the button's grayed out. So you can't actually then do the process to be a trusted source in New Zealand. So they're saying, we're not going to put this source up. If you're talking about politics, you need to be a trusted source. Go here to be a trusted source. This is Facebook. Yeah. We go there and then they won't let us be a trusted source.
You're fake news. Yeah. Fake news.
Fake.
You are fake news. Yeah, you're fake news.
But so if you're talking about getting on Instagram yourself and doing that kind of thing, are you, do you have anything planned, or are you just is it an area you're going to start to delve into?
I think it's an area I'm going to start to delve into. Also thought about doing podcasts, but I think podcasts are good, but at the same time, like you need all this technology. Like your podcast, like I've seen some of them, they're real amazing and they're real high quality.
Oh, bless.
Oh, shucks, we'll have you back.
Yeah. The check's in the mail.
But at the same time, though, you can, if you don't do video and you don't do live stream, which is the two harder parts, you just need a phone, really, and a couple of $20 microphones from Trade Me or eBay, and away you go.
The best podcast, the best content, whatever it is in the world, the audio and video quality of it doesn't matter. I would much rather watch the best movie there was in 480p or SD or whatever, black and white, than the most amazing 4K pile of shit with no storyline.
Well, that's the thing, like our video, like
The Room.
The Room, yeah. No, that was fantastic. I like that.
The Room is awesome. Tearing me apart, Lisa. But like, objectively, our video quality is a lot better than even Joe Rogan, and I would give up our video quality in a heartbeat to have
sacrilege.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
My favorite podcast at the moment is Comedian Talk, something like that. Trying to think, it's like
Comedian
podcast,
right?
And like lots of comedians have been on there. Trying to think,
is that the New Zealand one? Is that the one that done Tim Bat did, or is that
no? It's on Spotify. It's like done by a US UK comedian.
We're not here to promote other podcasts.
Gonna bring it up on.
I refuse to bring it up. What's this? There's other podcasts.
Do you know what I often do is I often look for guests rather than the hosts.
Sure.
So there's a really interesting woman at the moment, Dr. Deborah So, and she was a university lecturer. She's a scientist. She's everything.
Yeah.
Hot as all hell. You should bring up Dr. Deborah So, SOH, and she's a neuroscientist, and she's doing some really interesting stuff at the moment, and talking about some really interesting things, quite controversial, not because she's controversial, not in other words because she's trying to be, but some of the things she's saying. So I've already messaged their Facebook page saying, can we please do a podcast at some stage? I would love to talk to her. So if I hear she's on anything, I'll listen to it. I like Tom Segura. I really like Tom Segura's comedy. If I hear he's on anything, I'll listen to it. But then I've got my stalwarts over there. I listen to WTF and I listen to Rogan. I listen to Your Mom's House, and she's got a podcast as well. I can't remember what it's called, but it's more scientific and more sort of researching. I listen to that as well. Okay. And then I've got a bunch of others. I listen to Leighton Smith's one occasionally. I listen to Media Watch and RNZ as well. But most of my input is from offshore, really.
That's pretty cool. So you don't really listen to Tim Batts' podcast?
There's one that were a bunch of comedians that used to do it in Auckland. They had a yellow page. I can't remember the name of it. And it had like 5 comedians on it, young guys before they broke through. And I did listen to that for a long time. I wonder if I can... Oh, Deborah So's is called Wrong Speak. There was a New Zealand one that I did listen to. I can't remember what it's called though. No, it's not coming out of here.
Yeah.
I've got Louis C.K.'s one in here. Does that mean I'm a terrible, terrible person?
I don't think so. Was he really done though? Like,
What do you think of all of that? There's a lot of comedians getting a lot of flack over the last 12 months for things that they've done. I mean, like, okay, let's be very careful here. Some comedians, like Bill Cosby, an appropriate amount of flack has been thrown their way. But other things with the whole Me Too movement and with where society is at the moment, saying you can't talk about this kind of stuff, you can't joke about that. Like Ricky Gervais was an interesting one. He made a joke about Caitlyn Jenner. And the joke was about her being a terrible driver because she's a woman. So he was playing on a sexist stereotype of women, but people attacked him for it because you don't make fun of transgender people. So it was an interesting sort of dynamic there where he wasn't making fun of her for being transgender. He was actually kind of making fun of her for being a bad woman driver, playing that old trope on purpose.
yeah.
Is it something that you ever crosses your mind? That you have to be careful out there, or is that not part of the New Zealand scene so much?
Oh yeah, for sure. Like, I think there's some certain things that cross my mind. Like, is this a bit dodgy? Because we're doing comedy, and you want the audience to come back and like you, and come back and watch.
And that's probably because you're new as well.
Yeah.
Because if you're massive, you don't give a shit. Because if you're selling out anyway, you don't give a shit. Like Dave Chappelle's really interesting. Dave Chappelle, have you seen any of his stand-ups on Netflix at the moment?
I've heard of them though.
Dave Chappelle's really, really worth watching because he left the comedy scene for 10 years and just went, I'm out. And he tells a few stories from on stage, and he says he has a policy, and everyone laughs, but he's telling the truth. He goes, he has a policy that he never feels bad for anything he says on stage. And what he's saying is, as a comedian, I can't feel bad for anything I say on stage. But then again, he just got $60 million from Netflix for 3 specials. So he has the ability to do that. That's like, I always find people who go, like musicians, I never do this for the awards, but they've got like 8 Grammys.
Yeah.
So it's easier to say, I've never done this for the awards, and they've got a bunch of awards. If you have no awards, it might be a different tune.
It's the famous rich people who say that money and fame.
Money doesn't matter.
Money doesn't buy you happiness.
No.
Says the person with $1 billion.
Yeah, and the jet ski.
And the
Who was that? That's Daniel Tosh.
Sitting on the beach in Fiji.
Tosh 2.0.
Yeah, that's Daniel Tosh. He's got a set where he talks about how that's a lie. Money, that's more stand-up comedians. Money won't buy you happiness. He goes, have you seen a jet ski? He goes, have you ever seen anyone on a jet ski not be happy? I'm sorry, it's not good to do people stand-up. It ruins it. But I watch a lot of it. Is that vibe coming through the clubs and scenes in New Zealand? Do you have to worry about it? Could you literally joke about anything on stage and not make headlines, or?
Well, I want to say no, but at the same time, like, I think lots of comedians have to watch about what they say. Like, depending how new you are. Like, I know I'm very careful about what I say, but someone like Brendan Lovegrove or Ben Hurley or someone like that.
Yep.
Probably got a little bit more leeway because
Yep.
they've been doing it for longer than I have, and they're used to writing.
And if they lose 10% of their audience, they still sell out a venue anyway.
Yeah, but I think even then, like, I think like most comedians are pretty conscious towards what they say.
Yeah,
because even then, like, like, they're still not like Ricky Gervais or anything. Yeah,
it's fascinating, isn't it? I wonder what's happened. I mean, I remember what's his name, Gore, the ex-vice president, Al Gore, talking to Jon Stewart when Jon Stewart used to do The Daily Show before Trevor Noah.
Yeah.
And Jon Stewart was making the point to Al Gore, why is it that we're the only people saying these things? Meaning, in the political realm, he was a political commentator primarily, that was where his comedy was. Why do we say all these things that are true and accurate? And like the news channels won't say it. And Al Gore said to him, because the jester was the only person that could tell the king the truth.
Yeah.
So the jester in the in the court was the only person that could go up to the king and tell him the truth without fear of having his head cut off. So there is a responsibility there, I guess, that comedy, some comedians, especially maybe ones who have social comedy, or maybe what you do as well with mental health and stuff, have the ability to cut through and tell truth that other people can't, don't, or won't.
Yeah, I know, like, because when I do my show and stuff, or when I do a set, like, some people have really, like, they want to laugh, but they don't want to laugh. And so, like, during my show, I kind of have to reassure people and, like, at the start, kind of encourage them to laugh, which is why I try and get an opening act and I try and come up with energy at the start. And then so people are like, oh, it's a comedy show. And then I'm like, hey, look, guys, feel free to laugh at it. And I can even do a gag at the start where I hand out tissue papers to the crowd.
So they can cry?
I hinted that.
Or so they can, like, whack one out.
I hinted that. You have to see the show.
If they really, really like you, you might need these tissues.
Yeah,
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. You might laugh, cry.
So what's happening over the weekend? I mean, people who happen to be watching this live stream, and obviously majority of people pick us up afterwards, but it's what day is it? It's Friday today.
My show's today. Yeah.
So your show's tonight in Dunedin?
Yeah.
When, where?
D's Cafe, 8 o'clock.
D's Cafe. Is there a cover charge? Is there a koha? What is it?
$10. There's a show on after mine as well, which is koha. So
yep.
Yeah, two shows.
How do you do that? How do you have a show on after that's koha? Because that means once they're already sitting in there and they paid their $10, what happens then?
Well, they paid $10 for my show.
Yeah. Then they kick them all out.
Yeah, so we'll kick them all out and they'll be like, I'll come back down and watch it or just stay by.
Sorry to sound like a moron being someone who lives in Dunedin, but Dee's Cafe and Venue, just having a look, 403 Princess Street, that's just past the Octagon.
That's close to you guys. It's like across the road.
Yeah,
where Chipmunks is, yeah.
Where Chipmunks is. So drop your kids at Chipmunks and go and check out.
We'll be closed. We'll break into them. They follow me on Instagram, so.
And this is going to be the Search for Happiness?
Yeah, Search for Happiness. And then,
do you ever see what people like Sir John Kerwin are doing and think, good work for mental health?
Oh, absolutely. Even Mike King, like, I think they're doing pretty well. Like, I think it's something I want to do. Even Corey Gonzalez McCure, hope I said his name right. Like he's got a show now about it, and I think he's doing pretty amazing work. Like, and he's coming out and talking about it. And
it's an interesting thing, the mental health thing, because I've certainly been through some down times and had to go to doctors and get help with some serotonin uppers in the last couple of years. And I've never said this publicly, or many people don't know this, but going through my marriage breakup and stuff, there was suicidal ideations there, and it's once you've experienced it, you can kind of go, oh, I see how easy it is for anyone to fall into this. So talking about it more and having it more out there and having people and not being stigmatized as badly.
Yeah, it's about breaking the stigma. Like,
yeah.
I hope people that go to my show go away talking about it, or even males, like especially males, because like males have the highest like suicide rate in New Zealand, and I think that's because males are less inclined to go like I don't know if you've experienced this, but like males are less inclined to talk about their problems. Like we go to a pub and we're like, have you seen the rugby lately? Yeah.
She'll be right.
I think that, and I've probably said this on this podcast before, but I think that everyone should be in counselling.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think that for a very long time, me included, you look at the American system, how everyone's in therapy, more than therapy, and you kind of roll your eyes and laugh at them. But I think now the example that I often use is a game of rugby, and our life is the rugby field, right? And all the players on the field are a part of our life. And when you're in that front row and you're down head to head, you don't know what the fullback's doing.
No.
You can't see it. You can only see what's in front of you. But someone who's in the stands, they can see the whole game.
Exactly.
They can see all of your life. So my counsellor, my therapist, I consider that someone who's in the stand watching my life. And there's times where I don't know what the fullback's doing, but him sitting on the outside looking in can see it.
Yeah.
And I think it's nothing but healthy. I think even if you're feeling amazing and good, having someone, be it a trusted friend, a church member, a therapist, a counsellor, or whatever, to talk to about your life can do nothing but positive things.
Oh, absolutely. I totally agree with that. Like, my counsellor helped me so much, and looking back, like when I was a teenager, I really wish I talked to my counsellor more rather than just, be like, oh yeah, I don't really want to talk about this. Like I'm just here because my parents paid money for me to come here. I kind of wish I talked about stuff sooner.
Do you still see someone now?
Not really, but I know that if I do get down that dark path again, there's someone out there that I can talk to.
We should have probably organised this before, Jace. Maybe you can find something super quick. But, if people are suffering from depression, if they're depressed right now, if they want help, if they want to go somewhere, do you know anyone anywhere? Like you see in the paper, people having suicidal thoughts, they you can call this number sort of thing. Do you know of anywhere that people can be directed to if they happen to be listening and they think, oh well?
There's one New Zealand mental health people have done some great ones. There's like this great one, depression.org, where you can go, and there's some great ones just understanding it, and there's also, from what I remember looking at it once, they actually do break it out into different things. I can't remember what it is, but there's obviously there's the John Kerwin, but then there's also another one I think you can click on which goes and it has people from it's like Jane Yi, and so it's more focused for teenagers and young people, so it's got people that they would relate to talking to them as well.
So if people are listening and not watching, it's depression.org, and the phone number is 0800 111 757, or you can text 4202.
It's also Lifeline.
Lifeline?
I joke about them on my show.
Not that we've come here officially to pass on the information, but if people are listening and they are thinking anything, depression.org, scroll back down, Jay, so I can see the number again, 0800 111 757, and the text is 4202. Nathan Headley, I think we've come to a nice natural end here. So 8 o'clock tonight, Dee's Cafe, Princess Street, if people happen to be watching live.
Add me off my Facebook page. Message me if you feel down as well. I'm happy to talk.
Nice.
I think Mike King does something similar. So
very cool. Hey, thanks for coming in.
Thank you, buddy. Choice.